What is the most toxic thing a parent can say to a child? I'm tired of pretending to love you. Wow, I thought it was going to be hard to top my dad's I'm going to kill myself and it's your fault, but I found it. My mother said the exact same, with knife in hand as she closed her bedroom door. I was barely 10. She ultimately didn't do it, but I didn't know that until the following morning. Those words and that moment remain etched in my memory. I'm sorry your father said the same. It was never you though. 3. Glad to know I'm not the only one with that fun memory. Mine did have a fun screw you at the end though. I was 14. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this to be seen by so many. Thank you for the love. This happened because I confronted my dad about his drinking when I saw him angrily shove my mom against a wall. He did walk into the back room, where I knew he had a gun as my mom dragged me out of the house. Thankfully, he came out and handed my mom the gun and left. I'm now 32 and my dad has been sober for quite some time. He attends daily meetings. There are still lots of trust issues and we aren't close, but he has managed to turn his life around and become a good grandfather to my siblings' kids. He was physically and mentally abused by his mother, so it was a toxic cycle that I have no interest in being a part of. Talk shit about the other parent then compare you to them. You're just like your father, right in the childhood trauma. Had that one time when I was a teenager. It was a big argument and I was an angry teen. I said, well, you fucking married him and then stayed long enough to have kids. So that's on you. It was the last time she said it. That's a boss level comeback right there. My mom would say that to my brother. Well, my parents separated and New York dad moved to another country. And my brother hated him for it. So that probably wasn't nice to hear. My brother still worships her though, so I wish you were never born. Life would be better without you. You are the reason for our misery. Ah yes, the good old we can't take responsibility for our choices. So let's take it out on you kinds of bastards. Heard that one so many times. Starting around 7 years old. 2 decades later it still hurts. Sure, I know it wasn't my fault. People are kind and will repeat that until they're blue in the face. But what many don't seem to understand is knowing doesn't erase the pain. Imagine someone sticks out their leg and trips a person without getting caught. And the person breaks their arm. 10 years later, that person learns the truth. That it wasn't their fault. But that doesn't take away the residual pain, or surgical screws, or persistent difficulty using that arm from the damage done. Some people seem to move on a lot more effectively than others, but some don't. And I want to remind anyone in that boat that it's okay. You can hurt. You are under no obligation to move on in any sort of time frame. And there isn't necessarily something wrong with you for still hurting. Letting that pain control your decisions is another deal. But it seems like we often end up with this shame of not being able to move on, smiling uncomfortably and nodding when friends aggressively repeat, "It wasn't your fault," until they stop, and the like. It wasn't your fault. But you are no less for still hurting from it. 3. When I was 11 I overheard my mother telling someone that at least my looks meant she didn't have to worry about me being molested or raped. That fucked me up for years. So you're saying that I'm a bad parent in response to any form of help seeking of constructive criticism was the worst for me. Oh yes, I've gotten this before. You try to not internalize for once, and it goes straight to this. Were you raised by my Mel? Because she says this to me whenever I refuse to put up with even her minor bullshit. Insulting your intelligence is a horrible thing for a parent to do. Something where if a friend or stranger had said it, you might just laugh/shrug it off. But your own parent saying it? A good parent should stay away from anything that can ruin your self-esteem because they hold a lot more power than they tend to realize. My parents said I should have known who won all the World Cups. Capital city of each country. All meanwhile they kept telling me to shut up whenever I asked questions. The whole time I was in school I tried my hardest to be the smartest person in the room. Until now I don't believe it when friends tell me I'm smart. Damn, this thread is just validating that some people should not be parents. Yup. The difference between the parents described on this thread and many of the children telling the stories is that at least the children can acknowledge kids aren't for them. My mother never wanted kids, but she convinced herself she did and proceeded to abuse us. I also never want kids, and I have the foresight to know that if I had any kids I'd be very likely to fuck them up in some way, so I won't force myself to have any. Edit to at FWIW. I don't want kids for many reasons, and not just because of my upbringing. It's not that I'm scared I'll mess up. I just recognize that, like my mother, kids just annoy me by existing. Unlike my mother, I don't plan to have one anyway and just punish it for existing. Your uncle wouldn't mess with you if you didn't walk around the house like a slug. Not told to me, but a childhood friend. Her uncle was arrested a few years after that, but the thing that hurt her the worst is that her mother assumed it was her fault. Wow, I can relate. When I told my grandma that dad had molested me, she basically said I must have asked for it by wearing something provocative. I was 16 at the time and wore a hoodie and jeans. Needless to say, I wasn't going to get any help. I couldn't have told anyone else anyway because I was afraid people wouldn't believe me, and my dad told everyone I was retarded to humiliate and discredit me. As an adult, I have long since cut off all ties and connections to my dad. I'm free of him. Just in case anyone else needs to hear this, Oprah Winfrey once said, in response to a similar statement, you should be able to walk around naked in your own house before you worry about something like that happening to you. It has nothing to do with how someone is dressed. This actually happened to my cousin. Her father committed suicide when she was 8. From then on, her mother became an alcoholic after losing custody of her kids. She was eventually granted the ability to see her kids unsupervised, which did not pan out. The kids spent the weekend with her, but pretty soon she started drinking very heavily. My cousin told her she would have to tell another adult that she was drinking, and the mom started calling her all sorts of terrible names. So my cousin ran to the bathroom and locked the door behind her. I swear to God, the mom actually said to her own 15-year-old daughter, when the police ask you why both your parents are dead, you'll know what to tell them. I'm going to kill myself just like your father did, and both will be your fault. My cousin is so sweet, funny, and pretty, and she's one of my favorite people in the planet. She is so kind, and she got dealt a shitty hand. Your cousin probably still needs help because she might consciously or unconsciously think that saying certain things to people will cause them to commit suicide. Especially because she is such a nice person. I'm saying this. I'm going to throw myself off a building. You will hate me anyway. And 100 variations of that. OMG, I'm in my 40s and still hear this from my mom. My response has gone from terror when I was younger to go ahead and get it over with already. My drunken father once told me, you'll never be the man that I am. I remember thinking, you're damn right I won't be. Great mindset, keep on being better. I wish you'd commit suicide. My dad. Been told the same thing by my mother multiple times. That shit fucks you up. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, and I hope and pray you have a happy, healthy life now. My mum has been the same. Luckily for me, she didn't say it when I was very close to planning on how to actually do it, but because I knew what she was like, I left home for 4 months to get away from her when things were dark. She tried saying it again when I was in a better but not ideal place, and it really hurt. Not once had I said anything to her that would warrant her saying that to me. She'd ask me how my day went at work, and if it wasn't just it was fine, she'd tell me to go kill myself. I can't wait to get away from her. Constantly comparing you with your older siblings and extremely different treatment. It makes you feel inferior to them, and like no matter how much you try or do, it will never be enough. I have this, but with my younger siblings. Why can't you be as successful as them? You are supposed to set the example. You are so lazy. They work 10x harder than you. IDK dad. Maybe cause I had to start working at 15 cause you couldn't pay for school for 3 kids cause your ex-wife drank all the money away or gave it to her kid. Maybe if I had the time to do homework or study instead of working nights on a fake kid you provided, I would have had better grades and wouldn't have had to spend my entire adult life in retail or food. Edit. Thank you to all the kind replies. I feel for those of you in similar shitty situations, and I wish you all the best and hope that you can find your way forward towards a better life. Do not let others diminish you. There is only one you, and you are fantastic. I see lots of you can still study and only you can get out of retail. And you guys are 100% correct. Before COVID hit I was in a pretty bad place. My partner and I decided that after our wedding we will get me into a part-time program towards getting a degree in business management as I had spent a long time in management positions. When COVID hit all that went out the window. We were already living with my partner's parents. One has severe asthma and the other type 2 diabetes. I was forced to walk away from my job because they were not following any guidelines and I was worried about carrying it back to her parents. So we burned through all our savings and wedding money during the 8-month lockdown. During that time, helped my partner's mother with her PC as she worked from home. Somehow ending up becoming tech support to some of her other colleagues. Word got back to her boss and we had a Zoom meeting that turned into an interview. Turns out that he needed someone with stock management experience. I'm now officially out of retail. Permanent contract in a fantastic 9 to 5 that I wouldn't trade the world for. So yeah, I finally got out of retail and once my partner and I get our feet back under us I will most likely go back to studying again. I have a good relationship with my brothers. Not what it should be, but good nonetheless. My father is another story. So I'm the eldest. My mom had me at 18. Dad was 16. He left shortly after. Ended up with a sexually abusive stepdad for about 10 years. Next stepdad just didn't like me at all. Mom would constantly make fun of me for being fat, even at the times I wasn't and she was, and often used me as her emotional dump because she has unresolved issues. She had 2 other daughters in this time. When my second stepdad came along, they tried to make a better home situation and I couldn't help but be jealous of how much better my sisters were treated. At lunch one day, my mom breaks down crying and says she saw my sisters as a second chance for how much she screwed up with me. At the time, I was happy to hear it because I want my sisters to have a much better life. But I'm still here. She didn't really try to fix anything between us. Hell, when I told her about first stepdad, she said she didn't want to report him because of something to do with her taxes. I have no idea. Edit. I'd just like to thank everyone for this outpouring of love. Wasn't quite expecting it, but it really warmed my heart. Thank you also for the awards 3. I don't believe you. When the school told her I'd been sexually assaulted. This happened to me as well. And my father said I ruined the family. When the police came over to my house, I had actually forgotten I had told someone in school about it until they showed up. My father didn't take it very well. He was embarrassed I had said something. I'm 42 now, with boys of my own, and I am proud to say they don't have a relationship with my dad. They don't know him. My father-in-law is the best grandfather to them. I'm so sorry this happened to you. You're not alone. We're probably millions who sadly went through this. 1. You are useless. 2. No man would ever want to marry you. 3. I wish I never had you. Gee, thanks, Mom, for showing me I'm worth something. Sarcasm. 2 decades have gone by and it still pinches me today. The list goes on, but those 3 statements were repeatedly said. I would never treat my children like that. Hell, when I have kids they are not visiting their grandparents without supervision. This time I will stand up to them. I have nothing to lose this time. It's been 20 years. Better late than never. You're going to die alone. Even worse, you're going to end up alone. But said casually in response to a comment I made about a reality show. That's my dad's specialty. Incredibly shitty comments said in a harmless tone out of nowhere. Lol, but those comments say a lot about him and nothing about me. I kicked your mom out, and I can kick you out as well. My dad was kicked out at 13. They started to throw that in my face as a threat to kick me out when I was 9. They'd start counting down the years. And by the time I was 11, saying they'd do it earlier. My dad made my mom choose between me or him when I was 15. He was angry I wouldn't give him my email password so he could change it and block me from having any friends after I changed schools. My mom without hesitation told me to leave. It was winter. I had no coat. I wandered around town then slept under the stairs of the building they lived in. Eventually that night my father gave my mother permission to let me back in. I told them about this trauma when I was 25. They both screamed at me and called me a fucking liar while I cried. I'll never forget the trauma of my mother telling her child to leave and choosing her husband over an ML password. I have a list. 1. I wish I aborted you. 2. I wish I put you up for adoption. 3. List all the bad things about dad and then immediately tell me I look/act just like him. 4. What did I do to deserve such a disrespectful child? Why couldn't I have a good one? I was not a bad kid at all. Always home, cleaning the house, cooking for her, good grades, people pleaser, etc. She wonders why I never talked to her about big things happening in my life, why I put 5,000 miles in between us, and why I haven't returned home for almost 10 years. Edit. I'm absolutely overwhelmed by all your lovely well wishes. And how many of you relate? In all that space I put between my mother and I and all the time I created a lovely little life. I worked on myself so much and I'm healing from the traumas I experienced. I so wish the same for everyone who relates. I'm attempting to reply to every comment and wish you all something lovely and positive because you deserve it. If I miss yours, I still think you are lovely and wonderful and deserving of the best things life can offer. Edit. 2. So many of us dealing with this. This wonderful book helped me and another editor jumpstart ourselves to healing and realization. Toxic parents, overcoming their hurtful legacy and reclaiming your life by Drive. Susan Forward. If you have a way to read this, please do. Especially those of you who can't go to therapists who would recommend this to you. It may not be as harsh as other things stated, but the dreaded "it's all in your head/you are just imagining it." As it turned out, I wasn't imagining it, and now I struggle to differentiate what's real and what's not, because I was led to believe I thought I was imagining things constantly. Gaslighting is such a horrible thing to do, especially to a kid. You are not alone. I always need a second opinion, because I think mine is invalid, and I imagine things. I always feel like I'm the problem in every situation. We are moving and you're not welcome. This is what my dad said to me while blackout drunk. After he took my sister's pizza that I made, ate it in front of me, and then threw the pizza at me after I asked him why the fuck he's like that and walked away. We were supposed to be moving to a new place the next couple weeks after this fight. My sister's childhood best friend lived with us for several years because her mother made good on that very threat. Her parents were divorced and her father lived out of the area. Her mother decided she wanted to move and told the girl that her brother was moving too, but she wasn't welcome and could go live with her father instead. My sister's friend didn't want to move to where her father lived, so she moved in with us and lived with us until she went away to college 5 years later. I never wanted to have kids with your dad. He forced me to have you. My mom likes to remind me every so often that my dad never wanted kids. And he told her that if she wanted them, she would have to quit working and stay home to raise them. So 2 in 1. My dad didn't actually want me, and I ruined the career my mom loved. What pisses me off more is she didn't start telling me this until after my dad developed early onset dementia, so he couldn't even back up or refute the claims. Just her bitter word. Fuck, I'm in my 30s now and try to be civil with my mom, since her and my brother are the only family I have left. But these kind of passively fucked up comments are why I moved hundreds of miles away as soon as I could. Okay, over and over again for years and years. Any accomplishment, any trial passed, any challenge won, just okay. My heart breaks for each and every commenter on this thread. I'm so sorry for your pain, and I hope you can overcome. Time for a group hug. I gave up everything I liked for you. 95. Why not 100? Why can't you be like so and so's child? They do one impressive thing a bit subtler than the top comments here, but can eat a child's self-worth and guilt them well into adulthood and pass by standard alarms. Edit. Yes. Asian parents, haha. I blame but don't hate them. It's a struggle when your default behavior is to not think you have worth when achieving something. As for some reason there's always more you cold done, and what I just finished isn't actually that impressive in my mind. It is, and will be, a battle to unlearn, and I wish all those who share this experience the best in their journey of unlearning and self-accepting. I remember bringing home a report card with a 99 grade out of 100 and being so proud. And my mother saying, there's still room for improvement. Does hitting your kid count? Because that's how my dad talked to me. Or while they are hitting you telling you it's because they love you and or you made them do it. And as they are shouting at you, hitting you at time with each syllable. I think it counts. Threatening suicide when you try to set a boundary. There's other things, arguably worse, but I don't feel comfortable sharing them. After I got accepted to my dream college, my mom told me I'm too stupid to actually go and succeed. I graduated high school with honors. But I thought she was right. I dropped out before I even went. Still regret it. Parents like yours get my blood boiling. They get kids to believe stupid things, which is not even your/the kid's fault, and then effectively ruin the kids' lives. Then they say SEE, IWASRIG height along, which damages the kids even further. Hope you will recover from that in the future. And NBSP, thank you kind stranger for the award. Not the most toxic by far, but potentially the most common. Making fun of your kid for making a change in their life for the better. I was always antisocial and the complete opposite of athletic. When I began to try and work out to gain some muscle, I got teased by my parents. All that did was discourage me and make me want to quit. This could go for anything. Is your kid antisocial? The we lines low OKW HODCI dead TO leave THE caviar and enjoy NUS is fucking toxic and just encourages them to stay in their room. If your kid decides to make a positive change in their life, don't fucking discourage them so you can get an easy laugh. In my experience, divorced parents that say stuff like, don't talk about that to your other parent, tell your other parent, this your other parent is trying to manipulate you. You see what other parent did? I'm not saying you should hate them, but isn't it bit fucked up that they did that? It really screws with the kid's head. If you're ever going through a divorce and have children, please find a way to sort your shit with your former spouse without involving your children more than necessary. When I was your ages was 98 pounds. Every time I meet her she tells me that shit. My husband's so annoyed by it that he asks my mother regularly about her weight at different ages just to make her see how stupid she sounds. Still annoying as hell though. We think you'll be pregnant before you turn 18. This was when I was 15 and still a virgin. I hadn't have some speaking problems where I can't motivate my mouth opening enough to let the words out. One day in an argument with my father, he told me that I should learn to speak. That really hurts, especially from your father. Most of the things people have contributed are insults or direct attacks. But I think probably the most toxic thing a parent can say to a child is any form of, nobody will ever love you as much as I do, or I'm the only one who really loves you. Because it's the psychological equivalent of a bear trap. Its purpose isn't just to hurt the kid, but to keep them from ever leaving. Its purpose is to convince the kid that there's no point in trying to escape abuse. You're the reason behind every problem in this family, said to me word for word by my mother because I had a migraine and requested that they help keep my sisters as quiet as possible because I was hurting. I even asked to just be let out of the car so I could bus home, but they wouldn't let me do that either. They wouldn't help me with problems and they wouldn't let me help myself. How? TF am I the reason behind every problem? You think I fucking want migraines? No, I fucking don't. It hurts so bad that it's increased my pain tolerance to the point that I have to have oozing pus sacs before I even notice an infection. I didn't ask for that amount of pain. If I had a choice I wouldn't hurt, but sure I caused every problem in the family by having a chronic illness. He would never do that. He was just kidding. When I told my mom my stepdad molested me, happened again, and 20 years later after another sibling was molested, she believed them. My dad once told me he missed when I was a little kid. Because back then I was dependent on him and couldn't say no. I told that to a psychiatrist and her eyes damn near fell out of her face. Cue me screaming no, no, no sexual assault, apostrophe. Dad, you ruined the family. When I finally had the guts to tell someone that my uncle, his sister's husband, was sexually abusing me for several years,